Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Good, Frank. Good to see you.
Same here, man.
How are you, my friend?
I am doing fabulous.
Good week?
It's always a good week. You know, it's only Monday.
Start to the
Good
week.
Yeah, the week just started. Right?
Kicking things off right.
Yeah, it is kicking off right.
I'm excited for this week's episode.
Yeah, me too. We're going to be talking about Dr. Bruce Lipton.
Yeah, Dr. Bruce Lipton.
Yeah.
Frank, why don't you give us a little background about Dr. Bruce Lipton.
He was my next door neighbor. No.
Known him for years.
Yeah, known him for
Great
years.
guy.
Yeah.
Great guy.
No, actually, yeah, because so he's one of the first, for me anyway, one of the first doctors, he's a biologist, explaining the spiritual world, where I've read other people talking about this stuff, and I always found it curious, but he was the first one that really, for me anyway, applied the science into it and actually laid it out. So when I read his book, The Biology of Belief, I was like, wow, I knew something was there. I didn't understand half of it, you know, because I think I read it.
Why? More like doctor type of lingo or like?
Yeah, but no, he did an amazing job, though, making it to where the average person, he brought it down to the layman term. He's really good at explaining stuff. He's a highly intelligent person, but he's very good at explaining stuff to the layman aspect of it. No, like he actually explained the biology really, really well, but it was just, it was nothing I've ever heard. So it's always, you always look at the study of biology or study of physics is based on like Newtonian physics, you know, trying to have matter over matter. And he's talking about energy is what's creating the matter. So I was like, wow, this is interesting. So it peaked a very...
How far back did he go?
What do you mean, how far back?
Like, I mean, when was he studying this?
Oh, he himself. So from what I understand, it was like in 1968. I think he was, if I'm not mistaken, he is when he was starting to study actually stem cell research in the lab. He was one of like a handful of people. So from what I heard, hopefully I get this right, he would take cells and put them in a petri dish. And he started understanding is if you put different information in each petri dish, even though the cells were identical, he put like information in this one and information in this one. He had several petri dishes, and all of a sudden the cells started responding differently. So in this case, the information might have been bone, this one, muscle tissue. And all of a sudden, those cells would then replicate the muscle tissue, then the bone tissue. So he was realizing what's actually creating the cell is the environment, not the other way around. So,
see, that's what I love. Before we jumped into this episode, or before when we were talking about Bruce Lipton, I mean, I've watched Bruce Lipton now for a while, just because of his relationship with Greg Braden, you know,
and
Dr. Joe Dispenza. Yeah, exactly. But when I looked into epigenetics, what it kind of explained to me was, okay, so epi means above. And so epigenetics is the field above the genetic has effect.
Yeah, like an epidermis.
Yep, there you go. Yeah. Has the effect. And so what he has been able to scientifically prove, you know, is there are outside forces having effect on our genetics. And so like our DNA, our genes, what we're born with, we often think, oh, I've got the cancer gene. I'm screwed. You know, this runs in my family. And that's not true.
Well, what's interesting is how I come to see this, because when they go into it deeper, into understanding, so when you look at nature versus nurture, well, nature is you getting your biological material or your DNA from your parents. And but what else do your parents give you and your grandparents give you? They also give you beliefs. So nature and nurture, you actually, to some degree, when you look at it deeply, they're the same. And what I mean is how you believe creates your nurture or your environment, and nature is then what you come in with, the material you come with. We do come in with these information, but we can overturn it, we could change it. Like I think there's like 2 to 5% of people come in with genetic diseases that, and they don't get as far as saying, you know, how quickly someone can change that, but there is belief that can happen. So that means 95 to 98% of us that occur some type of disease, we actually create it through our behaviors, our beliefs, our environment. We create it. But even the parents, our grandparents, were the ones who taught us the belief. Our parents taught us the belief. So when they teach us how to believe, our belief then signals the protein, which then changes the genetic makeup, and then actually starts happening. And then as we start to further understand even now, how we feel creates an electromagnetic field. So the field is what's informing the epi aspect of it, is informing the cells. But the cells themselves are informing the field. It's the other way around.
They're reacting to the field.
The reacting field. Yeah, exactly. So now that we understand
They're
it,
affected by the field, by the field, the force around them.
Exactly. And so, and this is what I'm getting from, like, I hope I got this, right. Obviously, we're going to show a couple clips of him talking about it. But this is how I look at it. And even the other people I study, but for him, he's a scientist, a biologist behind a lot of what people are actually talking about. His information, like even talk about epigenetics. Obviously, epigenetics, I think the phrase was coined back, or the understanding of it was in 1942. But even that, it was based off of ideas and concepts from the 1700s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but then when Bruce came along, he was actually experimenting with it and seeing it and actually doing. And then he would do these experiments, and every time they would work out. It wasn't like hit or miss. It was working out. So he then evolved the understanding of putting epigenetics into play, into action. So
where he actually had the data to back it up.
Yeah. It wasn't him just talking about it in a philosophical question. It was the data. And actually, when you read his book, Biology of Belief, what I like about him, he doesn't just talk about biology. He talks about the history of philosophy, which philosophy is the start of all science. Mm-hmm. So then, you have philosophy, then you have to then prove what you're talking about is going to work. So he actually gets into history. He's, he has history into that stuff and gets to the point where we are right now.
See, that's awesome.
But the cool thing is it never ends. Once you think we're done here, that's when you realize, okay, once you say, all right, there's no more to learn here, that's when you have to laugh, because we know very little, and that's how it's designed. Because if we know too much, we're done, And if you're done, there's no more curiosity. There's no reason to get out of bed. No reason to continue this thing. And some people feel that way. And what it is they only read the forward in the book. They think the book's done. I'm like, no, that was the forward. That wasn't even.
Well, that
wasn't
totally
even the intro. And a lot of people don't even get beyond the context of the book before the book's over. I'm like, no, keep going, flip the pages.
As people begin to become more and more comfortable with these concepts too, you see that there is no end. In fact, that it's a constant growth. It's a forever moving type of experience. And so, like, as we kind of get into these concepts and as they soak in, to our subconscious mind, and we begin to practice them and experience them, there is no being done with this level.
No, not at all. Actually, we're coming upon the age, and we're starting to really immerse ourselves in these concepts, in these practices. And what we do is once we immerse ourselves and realize they actually work, that's when chapter 1 begins, not ends.
Exactly.
That's when the book, so to speak, begins. So, like, right now, even personally, I'm like, intellectually, this stuff works. But do I inherently or do I habitually always act on it? No. I still have these days like, oh, shit, and then I realize, okay, that's
the old programming.
Yeah, it's like me looking at the rear view mirror as I'm driving down the freeway. It's probably not a healthy thing to do.
Exactly.
But I'm aware of what I'm doing. I'm like, I realize there is nothing behind me I need to focus on. I need to focus in front of me.
And imagine, 20, 30 years ago, you would have stayed looking in that rear view the entire time you drove to work.
Oh, I did, actually.
Well, yeah, we all did.
Yeah.
And like
that's why my neck was stiff. I had a stiff neck for a while.
But that is so true.
I actually looked in the rear mirror and had my middle finger up half the time.
Yeah.
So I was like,
that's how most people are driving through life right now.
My middle finger was up because everyone honking at me because I was looking in the rear view mirror.
So saying, why doesn't this work? Why can't I drive straight?
Yeah.
Because we're always looking behind us.
And what happens is
looking to the future.
The reason we continue with the matter over matter type of world, this 3D world, is because most of the time I was looking in the rear view mirror, but periodically I would look at the windshield, and when I did, it worked. So I mark that up as like sometimes I'm lucky.
Yeah, that's what we all do. Yeah.
Or I might have been
Coincidence.
like, okay, when I noticed things were working out, I'm like, okay, this is what happened that day. And then superstition kicks in. It's like, I wore that red shirt, so put that red shirt on and drive this way to work, and don't talk to that person. And all of a sudden, it's like the superstition, but like, no, that's not really why that occurred. It's because you were focused, you were aware, you were conscious.
And you see this like with like game day rituals and stuff like that. You know, people, I got to wear this shirt, I can't wash it. I got to do this hat, wear it backwards, and do this dance at the second half.
And it'll get me into that state.
That's it.
And to some degree, I still do that, but I do it in a more conscious way. So when I sit down to meditate in the morning, it's the same thing. Meditation at some level, probably in humanity, will be all walking meditation. We'll be so conscious that we wouldn't have to go home and sit down in the dark and become familiar with a feeling. We'll be walking all day with that familiar feeling, which the word meditation means. But right now, because I get distracted, because the way I was programmed and allowed myself to be programmed, with not blaming anybody, it's just how it is, or overcoming the programs, and not to set new programs, but to stay conscious. If I'm conscious, you don't need a program.
That's the thing. What Bruce Lipton in this video that we're about to go into too, he's talking about letting the programs fall away.
Yeah.
He's not,
Yeah, but in the interim of it, learn beliefs that are more conducive to your life, that are more positive in your life. So you can replace old beliefs with new beliefs. But in the beginning, start with that. Then from at some point, it's almost like if you have full access to the internet on your phone or whatever, you don't need to store anything on the phone and waste up the energy on the phone.
I like how you just said that, because that's a great point. So like for me personally on my journey, when I started to learn these concepts and understand that I had been programmed since birth, to live in the society a certain way, to have these cultural beliefs, etc., I had to rewrite the program. So I had to put new programming in, starting with health, security, wealth, abundance, all these types of feelings that I wanted to experience. I just realized, oh, wow, the reason I'm not experiencing these is because I have never allowed my program to experience them. Yeah. I must put them in the system, put them in the computer in order to experience it. And I watched as this worked. I watched as this worked with my business, my family, friends, you name it. I watched as this created a sense of harmony within my life. Yeah. And then as you start to see that, it's like seeing the game from above. You're like, wow, I went from this old programming to this new programming. And you kind of take this step back and you're like, I can allow all the programming to fall away.
Yeah, because even the new programming you replace will eventually if you don't let go of that, it'll eventually slow you down and hinder you, and that's where the pain becomes. Again,
so it's like walking this fine line of using it to get where you need to, and then leveling up.
Yeah, exactly. And then one day, or I have days like this, but and they just appear where I don't go off my program. I'm fully conscious. And when I say days, it's probably like 10 minutes in the day that it happens.
Hey, that's a.
But nonetheless, like having a program that's more positive output is suggested in the interim of doing this, but I believe we come here to, just like technology right now, like one day you won't have to store anything. Like there's companies out there that years ago they had buildings full of computers storing their information. Now it's cloud-based, so they don't need to store it. It's they can access it anytime they want. It's just hanging out there. So when we stay conscious, we can access anything we want at that time. But if I'm not conscious, I have beliefs, which is nothing wrong with that, but I then have to store it on my phone and be like, oh, give me a second, let me pull that up on my phone. Oh, here's that quote I wrote down in my notes. Well, those notes are stored. But yet, if I want to learn something else, I could just go onto a server and, go to like Google or whatever and hit something, and it's already laying there. Like I didn't have to store it. I didn't have to waste the energy in my phone.
One of the things that also that relates to, this concept, of the reprogramming, the programming. So like these people out there, the what's that guy's name? Like the Tony Robbins and people like that, these motivational, these self-help, gurus, these types. They are teaching you how to reprogram. That is what they are doing. This reprogramming is a skill set to have you experience a better three-dimensional reality, to increase your skill level on this plane.
Yeah.
And what Frank and I want you to know are there are so many planes above this. And once you kind of learn this type of skill set of how this works and what you're doing, you elevate. And
yeah,
it's cool.
But until you go through this aspect, again,
this is part of the
this
dance.
is part of it.
Understanding what you are, how it works.
Yeah.
I just want people to see like that this is surface level to what can be achieved and experienced.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But and again, it's part of the experience. It's not to override it. This is why we're here. We're here to overcome distractions in this three-dimensional world, which is duality.
Yeah.
So everything has, what's up must down,
down.
So as we start to understand the physics of this three-dimensional world, we can then pull in information from other dimensions in order to navigate this world better.
Yeah.
I should say better, greater. And actually collectively we're starting to do that, watch the news and there's stuff going on in the world right now, now that no one's talking about COVID because everyone's talking about what's happening with Russia and the Ukraine. But you're seeing less people getting pulled in by it right now because more people are waking up and more people are easily connected to each other. And as we connect, we create a completely different field, and we all know what the field does to the particle.
That's it.
Yeah, so... And,
well, let's kick it off.
Yeah, let's play a clip from...
this is one of Bruce Lipton's. It's kind of a mashup, but this is something I thought was kind of cool because the title of it is Reprogramming the Mind. And so it's a very quick clip, but it gives you... there's a lot of great information in it.
All
so
right.
I figured we'd jump in, watch a few minutes of this one, and we got a couple clips for you guys today. Let's check it out.
95% of our life is coming from the programs of how to live life that we get in the first 7 years of life. And that's why poor people stay poor and rich people stay rich. The movie The Matrix is not science fiction. It's a documentary. Every human, and it's a fact, every human first 7 years is download a hypnosis. The brain of a child under 7 is in a lower vibrational frequency. When you put wires on a person's head, you read electroencephalograph, reading brain activity. A child below 7 has a lower vibration than consciousness. It's called Theta. Theta is imagination. Oh, that's how kids play tea party with mud pies, but to them it's a real thing. A kid rides a broom, it's a horse. That's Theta, imagination. Theta is also hypnosis. And the idea is this: before you can become conscious, if you don't have any programs, what are you going to be conscious of? So nature makes the first 7 years. What kind of programs are required to live on this planet? I say, how do you get them? Theta is hypnosis. You just watch. You watch your parents, you watch your siblings, and your community, because you have to learn how many 100,000 rules. Think about it. Just to be a functional member of a family and a functional member of a community, there are rules. Teach an infant these rules. You don't have to. First 7 years, they observe it and just download it. And then I say, well, why is it relevant? Because this is the unfortunate fact. 95% of our life comes from those programs in the subconscious. Every day, only about 5% of their life are you using conscious, which is creative. 5%. And you don't see it because it's called subconscious, below conscious. And the Jesuits, for 400 years, they were boasting. People didn't understand. They say, give me a child until it's 7 and I will show you the man. They've been saying that for 400 years because they knew 7 years was the program period. And 95% of your life after that will be whatever that program is. A child isn't functioning in consciousness until after 7. Before 7 is direct record. Whatever you just said, I just recorded it. So if the parent gets mad at the child, says, you don't deserve that, you don't deserve this, go. The child is not consciously understanding what you mean. Child's just recorded, I do not deserve. Now, if I hear that several times, especially in an emotional situation, because that downloads it faster, now I'm 40, 50 years old. What is my behavior 95% of the time? And the answer is, well, it comes from the program. I do not deserve. Well, that means unconsciously I will sabotage myself to make sure that the program is correct. I'm making the program true by adjusting the behavior to meet the program. Look, this is not new. I mean, there's a famous book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And basically said you come from a poor family and you could struggle your whole life and try to get rich, but you're not going to make it. And if you come from a rich family, you could be stupid your whole life and make it. Not because it was thinking, but it was unconscious behavior that was downloaded from rich families into kids, which is unconscious. So they're making the right moves unconsciously. If they engage their conscious mind, then they look stupid, but it's unconscious. And that's the same thing with poor people. Poor people have beliefs from the family. Oh, you can't make it. Life's a struggle. Things are hard. Who do you think you are? And if that's the program you get, then 95% of the day you will sabotage yourself. And that's why poor people stay poor and rich people stay rich, because of the programming.
Yeah, so true.
I know. I love that clip. It touched on a bunch of good stuff.
Yeah, but now we're at the awareness. So, obviously Bruce Lipton talking about, and other people out there talking about this. So it's about changing the program. And in the beginning, there is this inertia or this discomfort, right? But now we start to learn, actually, when you're consciously moving to the unknown, it's going to create discomfort. But when you consciously do it, that discomfort actually is an upgrade. Where if you're unwilling to do it, discomfort could be a downgrade. So you can't force somebody into anything. You have to, and that's why it's not our job to tell someone what to do. It's our job to do it. So when I learned a new concept, I would do this years ago. I'd read a book. I'm like, oh, this is great. I know somebody can use this information. Meanwhile,
that's definitely how it
was
works.
me who needs the information. And I've gotten extremely better at this where, excuse me, when I gather information, I'm like, wow, all of a sudden, and because we get something, we innately want to share it. But the only way I could truly share something is to be it. And what's happening is, what I'm learning to do is when I actually enact it. So if beginning it's a philosophy, oh, it sounds good, and I'll talk about it. And talking about it helps me then develop a practice of it. But when I start practicing it, and then I actually start developing outward experiences of it, all of a sudden, I don't even need to bring it up with somebody. If someone's like, hey, I've noticed this, I noticed that. And they're like, yeah. So people always go up to successful people. How do you become successful? Well, they didn't come up to them when they were 10. They came up to them when they were successful. And then from there, a highly successful person will say, well, I was once in your shoes. So right there, it lets them know that you're not doing anything wrong. I'm showing you how to look at it differently. And, the show is called Perspective Shift. When you shift your perspective, everything changes.
That's it.
Yeah.
I love that because, like, I don't know, you go up to somebody and, you talk to these different wealthy people. There was this book written once by a gentleman named Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
And in that book, he went and interviewed some of the most wealthy families in our country, and he did this for, I think, over a span of 10 or 20 years.
Yeah, spent a lot of time with Carnegie. And
Yeah. I mean, the Ford family,
Yeah.
like the big names,
Yeah.
Rothschild, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the one and only thing every single one of these people agreed on was what you think about. Excuse me. What you think about is what you become.
Yeah.
And that is so powerful because it truly is the dialogue that you are having with yourself is giving you the experience that you are calling reality.
Yeah.
So if you're not enjoying what you're experiencing, you need to look at how you're talking to yourself. How are you talking to yourself? What are you saying in between these ears? What's going on in that head? Because that's what this is getting at with Bruce Lipton. That's what the Napoleon Hill was getting at with Think and Grow Rich. We are setting a boundary or a box inside our heads and saying, okay, this is how this is. And we have the ability to go in and rearrange or reprogram these thoughts so we are not talking so negatively to ourselves day in, day out. Then, in turn, our reality begins to change, like Frank was saying.
Now, for some people, people hear this all the time, and they're like, well, how do I do that? Well, you have to come to realization who we are. We are nothing but actors on this, stepping into this play. And if we could separate from the persona who we are, to put a slight distance between them, we can then change the persona. But if you think you are the persona, if you think you are the program, you can't change the program.
That's where 95% of people are.
Yeah, you aren't the program. You're just running the program. So if people are like, well, I am that. I'm like, no, you aren't that. You're actually running that. You're acting that. That's, when someone's acting up, you're acting like this, you're acting like that. It's not you are that. You're acting like that.
Same thing with experience. When
Yeah.
people experience, pain, struggle, and they think they are that. This is my person. They associate only with the body and mind, and so they associate so heavily with their thoughts that it's hard for them to detach from the thought and become an observer of the thought. Because when you're an observer of the thought, you can see, oh wow, I don't have to connect through that. I am not the thought. I am not that experience. You witness the thought, you witness the experience, and that changes the whole dynamic of how you interpret it, the experience, and how you interpret the sensations.
Well, yeah, when you step back, because actually when you shift it into a new experience, then you're actually experiencing experience. So like a great actor will step back and, this movie's over, go into another one, step back and read a play. But then they have to immerse themselves back into it. But at a deeper level, they know they aren't that role, but they have to immerse themselves in the role. So it's not about just sitting back and thinking about the experience in your head. It's actually enacting it. So when I enact it, I'm actually feeling it. It's coming, the frequency and the electromagnetic field that's surrounding me is informed with the persona I took on. So if you have a persona you don't like, if it's one of disease, you realize you can step out of that, change it, and then go back into the one of health and experience health. So you are actually having that. But when I notice I don't like the way this feels, like, well, that's when the director says, cut, take 5, step back, let's regroup. Go in, let's change the character on this, let's go in a different direction, okay, and action. Then you go back into it. So we want to immerse ourselves into it, but we have this guidance system, it's called emotions, energy and motion. And I don't have to, everyone knows when they feel good and everyone knows when they don't feel good. And if you don't feel good, cut, take 5, meditate, whatever you have to do, then go back in, action. So
it really is that simple. Yeah, and we trip ourselves up by saying, no, it's not that it's not that simple. We second guess our bodies and our feelings and our sensations all the time.
Yeah.
And we say, oh, this is normal. I shouldn't feel this way. And we try to get through a situation, and it always turns out like shit.
Yeah. Well, a great actor will step onto the set already in action. So when I wake up in the morning, Mike does the same thing. Before I enter out into the day, I take care of this. So when I step out into the world, I'm already in the character. I don't just drift out into the street and let the people tell me what character I am. But I've done that in the past. I would go to work and let people know what character I was, and I respond and I react to it. Now, because I chose the character, I'm now responding. I'm in a responsible place, the ability to respond.
There's a powerful quote. I might be butchering it, but it's like, if you don't know who you are and you step out in the world will tell you who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's truth.
Yeah, it is truth.
If you're not consciously aware that you are creating this experience and you go out, you're now looking in the outside for them to tell you how you should feel, how you should act, what type of person you are, and this is not where you want to be.
And most of us experience that, so they realize that is not we have no control over that. But what we do have control of is the ability to choose the character in which I want to enact in the day, in the moment which I'm in. And then no matter what happens in the outside world, because I don't have control of the outside world, but my character response can respond the way I direct it, rather than getting feedback and getting reactive. I'm now responsive. Yeah, if it's raining out, my character knows what to do in the rain. If it's sunny out, my character knows. If there's something going wrong with my business, my character knows what to do to eradicate it. But if my character was like, oh, I wasn't ready for that, I'm like, now you're reacting, and all of a sudden, cut, go back. At least I know now to say cut and go like, I'll be back. Mm-hmm. Go back in the room, I'll bang shit around.
So a big reason that I chose this clip too. So I personally am Jesuit educated. That's where the high school I went to. I was taught by priests. I was taught, by Jesuits. Jesuits is a branch of Catholicism, and they're
like
kind
the
of like
liberals.
yeah, they're kind of like
They're the
that.
liberals of
They're kind of like the
Catholicism.
liberals of Catholicism. I like to call them the badasses of Catholicism. I like to call them the people that necessarily didn't bend to just any order, or they were the ones who questioned what was going on,
Well,
even within the church.
Yeah. Again, what they did is they practiced what they preached.
There you go.
A lot of people don't. A lot of people just talk about it but don't actually do it. So
So like that meant a lot to me. So that's what a Jesuit is. It's a branch of Catholicism, etc. We're not here to talk about religion by any means. We're here to talk about consciousness. So, but these are all stepping stones to consciousness. That's what religion is. So this the Jesuits that Bruce Lipton references here, he says, "Give me the man for 7 years." Or give me the man or give me the boy for 7 years and I'll show you the man, or whatever.
Yeah.
Give me the child and I'll show you the man. I remember being taught this in high school. I remember that phrase being heavily driven into us.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't know what it meant, but I remembered it coming up in my ethics classes, and I remember learning about this. Looking back at this, how powerful that is so cool to me, because it's true. It's like they knew from a very early age that this beginning stage of life was crucial to the person, and how they I don't want to say turn out, but the person they grow to be or grow into and become, later on in life. And so to see this going back 400 years, it's very cool, because it gives us the ability to look at what Bruce Lipton is talking about, and knowing this has some not only a science, but something that has been in play for hundreds and hundreds of years.
And what they really know. So it's not, we're not telling everyone they should go send your kids to Jesuits.
No.
What they
all.
understood is from pretty much it's around 2 years old to about 7 years old. So, or say birth to 7. Children are in that theta state, so they're very programmable.
Well, let's explain what the theta state is real quick.
Yeah, so it's just a low vibrating frequency in the brain. So you're actually...
It's a brainwave.
It's a brainwave, yeah. And so obviously beta. Right now, me and Mike are in like a low beta probably right now. Just having a nice conversation. We're not going to have to study anything afterwards.
An active mind.
Yeah, but we're
is
not...
beta.
Yeah. If you're worrying, you're in a high beta. If Mike was going to test me on everything we talked about today, I'd probably go into mid beta. But theta is where I start to gain information into.
You're absorbing.
Yeah, you're absorbing information. So, but the thing is, not only the Jesuits know this, every advertising company in the world knows this. They're programming us, but when you're conscious, you can simply break the program. Like so. People and a lot of people talk about this now. Oh my God, we're being programmed. We've always been programmed, everyone, since the beginning of time. People do this because you were told to do this. You talk about ethics. Who taught you the ethics? So you're like, oh yeah, this is familiar, so this must be right. All right. I'm not saying it's wrong, but you were programmed that ethic understanding.
Exactly.
But there is something innate in every human being that goes way beyond the programming, and it's this understanding of efficiency and knowing what works. And when actually we get into the field of what we call collaboration, collective collaboration, you get wave interference, but it's actually constructive. But we get into a lot of times we're actually battling against each other stuff. We get into a wave pattern that's deconstructive. So that's where wars start, right? Mm-hmm. So once we start understanding, we become conscious, you can shift to a different wavelength. And when you do this, everyone knows this, we get these higher levels. All you want to do is give and collaborate, not compete. So that's what we're getting at right now. So we actually start to choose a different persona. And you start to understand the physics of the world. I'm not talking about the program. I'm talking about the actual physics of why this works. All of a sudden, as we start to integrate with one another, me and Mike integrate and create a show, and you guys listening in is expanding it, and other people, we keep expanding it. All of a sudden, the field starts to grow strong, and then everyone gets consumed in the field. The field is what governs us.
That is the force.
And if we start to understand this, we go even beyond the programming. Yeah, I understood why people did that, but they knew what they knew. The Jesuits were programmed to program us.
Yep.
The advertising agents programmed to program us. I'm not here to blame. I'm not a victim anymore based off of that.
I got to mention something about your program statement because I just read this and it was so cool. It was somebody who they worked for the BBC, you know, that British news network.
Yeah.
So they talked about how they were, during the news cycle, they tried to introduce this type of news that became interactive. And so it gave people viewing at home the ability to interact with the news. So if something came up, like a box in the corner of the screen would say, to learn more about this subject, click here, or for more knowledge on this, or to hear the other, perspective on this, click here. It tanked so badly, and nobody wanted to be involved with like learning more. People don't want to click and learn more. People want to absorb. And so what we realized, like Frank said, when we sit down to watch TV or watch a show or watch the news, we sit back in a lower brainwave state and we absorb. And so so you watch Fox News or CNN, all you're doing is absorbing that information.
What they're selling,
It's not true. Either side is not true.
Well,
What's coming? You're going to find the truth very much so more in the middle. And we
Yeah.
all know this. And everybody you talk to what is honestly more so in the middle. But it's very funny how we act like we're learning or we're researching when in fact we are just absorbing.
Yeah.
And then regurgitating.
Yeah.
Doing the exact same thing we've done since 0 to 7 when we took in information from our parents, from our family, teachers, etc. We regurgitate, and that's why we act the way we do. It is all a program. And I just thought that was so interesting that when you sit there and watch television, like this has been proven.
Yeah, and that's so a guy like Bruce Lipton doesn't watch BBC to find out about biology. He goes into a laboratory and does it. And so like even me and Mike, as we learn these concepts, I don't just read about them, we actually enact them. Me and Mike are just talking about our experiences, and my experience can be different than anyone's out there. But
it is.
Yeah, we're just featuring, but
we all live in different worlds.
So if I want to get information, I don't go, because to me the news is a third party system. I'm like, so if someone's talking about biology, I want to go to the biologists that actually discovered this, and then they'll tell me that they studied this one, and all of a sudden I go down that thread. I want to go right to where it started. I don't want to get the third party information. Even like what me and Mike are talking about here, I'm like, by all means, you want to know about Bruce Lipton, we're just featuring him. You're not going to learn a lot about him by me and Mike talking about him. Go study the man. Go read his book. Go look at, he's got a ton of videos and stuff.
That's why we do this. We encourage that.
Yeah, we encourage it. But if you just listen to us and then run out and say, oh, I like this guy, Bruce Lipton.
This is true.
Yeah, like, no, we're barely touching on the tip of what Bruce
Then
Lipton.
we're CNN and Fox News.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't want you. So get out of that theta state and be conscious. No,
Yeah. Well, we have another clip. Should we do. Should we jump into that one?
Yep.
All right.
Then I'll give you this most wonderful quote. I used it the other day in a lecture from Albert Einstein. And the quote is so important. Here's the quote. The field, so a definition, the field is the invisible energy. Right now you're in a field, there's cell phone broadcasts, television, radio broadcasts, all kinds of information coming across. But guess what? Each one of you is a broadcast in that field. The quote, the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. Particle is the material realm. So what was Einstein saying? It's the energy in the field that shapes the physical experience of our lives. And if enough of us collectively have an energy that's coherent and strong, and we broadcast the belief, we change the world. I just want you to recognize, as much as I wanted peace in the world, if not enough people are out there saying, let's have peace in the world, there is no peace. If I want to say, let's have a war, how can you have a war? You have to have enough people convinced that the war is going to benefit them so that their broadcasts say, yes, let's have a war because I and my colleagues, we're all going to have a better result from that. And the reality is this. The only things that change on this planet collectively are when we collectively share thoughts. And yoga, when you're in your postures, when you're in your process, your mind is sharing a thought, not just in your head, but all around you. So the whole idea about this is we have to recognize we are collectively creating reality with our thoughts. And if we want to change reality, it can change instantly. The moment we become coherent, the moment we collectively are on the same platform of thinking. You get enough people to say peace, there will be peace instantly in this world. But we've been programmed by other people to give them the power to tell us what we need. And as Sadhviji has been telling us so importantly, what we need is not what they tell us, what we need is what we know.
Yeah, so I love what he says here. So, also, I've heard him talk about this, he didn't talk about in this clip, that the field is a sole governing agency of the particle. And so the situation of the physical world is the particle. So right now, we're all faced in this world, and, COVID's coming to an end.
Because the media says so.
Well, yeah. And I'm bringing this up. I'm just bringing this up lightly, just a little bit. It's not to focus on. But unless you've been living on the rock, you know what's going on in the Ukraine with Russia. Now, you're starting to see kickback. I don't really watch news. I keep informed about this stuff. But when we actually get into a field of peace, like I personally do it, and then I find myself into a field of collective people. The field of peace, one of collaboration, is constructive. But a field of negativity, because you can have that field too, is deconstructive. So for people out there listening, if you stay in that state of peace, you have more weight than a million people in negative, unless you get pulled into it. So we don't need 51% of people to be in this positive place in order for the war to end. It doesn't. You don't need that. You just need a small percentage. And if you don't think that, you get scared and fall into it. And I've talked to people about this. Like, yeah, I believe this will work, but what happens if too many people are against it? And then I feel all of a sudden, like, whoa, you're actually getting sucked into that field right now. Hold and maintain your field. And I tell people this. When we maintain this field of knowing, and even if the war does happen, I now know I have to up that field. I have to keep going. This is a continuous game, but there's no reason we have to suffer. I feel we're at this place. I'm definitely in this field since the last time there was a war, and I'm maintaining it, and I'm encouraging other people to maintain it. Go in there. Go look for the world. And when you look at whoever, you look at Putin, pray for Putin. Pray for him to, when I say pray for him, look at him one day of waking up in the morning and says, what am I doing? And change it. That's how you do it. But by hating him, you're falling into the prey of what he wants. So, again, if you have to disassociate from Putin, by all means do it. We know this. The Russian people don't want this, just like the Ukraine people won't want this.
Absolutely not.
Peace is in us. It's who we are. It's not something we have to strive for, but we seldom are burying with fear. And with fear, we're buried with fear. All of a sudden, that's the field that governs us. So what field do you want to govern you this day? What field do you want the populace to govern? Become the change in which you want to see. That's the truth. What field do you each individual has their part. Become that. Get away from fear, get into peace, because peace and fear can't exist at the same time.
I like how Frank brought up, peace is our, essentially our most natural state. That is our most natural state, is love. And so to be outside of that does feel uncomfortable, and it's for a reason. It's because it's not natural. Do you remember we were talking, I think, like last week about the Sadhguru and the guy talking about the war and stuff? Do you remember what he was saying?
About the war?
Just about like...
Oh,
he was a soldier.
Oh, the soldier. It's nothing about this war. It was in the past.
Correct. Yeah. I just thought that would apply kind of to this, and I love that.
Yeah, Sadhguru was actually doing a conference, and one of the participants got up to ask a question, and he was like very apologetic. He's like, "Hey, I feel really bad about what I did." And he goes, "Well, what is he doing?" He was a soldier, and he goes, "You were just doing your job." And he's like, "What?" He goes, "If I was doing my job better or greater, you wouldn't need to do your job." And that's what it is. We all have a job here. And I look at my job is maintaining peace in my life and maintaining peace around me in a field. And if that if war comes out of this, I then have to upgrade my peace. I take responsibility personally. I don't feel bad about it. I just I realize I have to do more work at this piece. There's not enough energy I can get to my heart to say I'm full. Like, there's always, my heart keeps opening up a little bit more every day. But when I focus on that, and that was Sadhguru was pretty much telling the guy, it's not your fault, it's my fault. Because if I did my job and spread peace around this world, you wouldn't have to enact your job. You're just doing your job because of what happened. So it's a very tricky thing about war. Because at a certain level, there is benevolence in a soldier. They're doing it because, you know, if I was sitting in there, someone asked me, like, oh, you're such peace, what happens if someone threw a punch at you? I'm like, I would duck. I would duck. And then I would try to contain the person. I'm not going to sit there and take it. Then I have to ask my question, how did I get into that state where I was being punched?
That's it.
But in the time when I'm there, I don't just sit back and do anything. So, but I want to do it benevolent. I want to decimate the person. I would just contain them. All right? There might have been a point where I would try to hurt them back. But now I just try to contain them. But then I have to ask my question, how did I get in a situation where someone threw a punch at me? And that's the question I ask myself. I'm not even asking anyone to ask that question. There's a personal question. But the soldiers that are soldiering today, in a lot of cases, are benevolent.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to do it. But if they don't, it'll get worse. But if we actually sit there, the people who claim to be meditators and prayers, if you sit there and hold without fear, the soldier won't have to soldier. They won't. So we have to.
And that's the field.
That's the field. We actually have to generate this field because they don't want to do it.
The particle can only respond to the field, was what Einstein was saying.
Yeah.
And so us knowing the field, we are the field. We give the weight. We're directed. We're solidifying this matter.
Well, how I feel generates an electromagnetic field. And the field is government agent of the particle, sole government agent of the particle. So just like I've heard stuff like this where like kids get riled and all of a sudden they start damaging property and stuff, and then the mom gets on. It's like, my son would never do that. Yeah, individually they wouldn't, but they got sucked into the field of destruction.
This is a well-known phenomenon. They call it, what do they call that? Mob rule.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Right?
But if you're conscious, you know to walk away from that mob. If you're conscious, you only choose what we call a constructive field, but if you're actually unconscious, you can fall into either one. Just because you're unconscious doesn't mean your life is going to turn out bad. But if you're unconscious, you get sucked into the field in which you're near. So when you're conscious, you choose the field. When you're unconscious, whatever wind blows your way is where you go. So it's a time to stop being conscious and choose the field of peace.
I want to give a couple examples of the field for you guys. Just that isn't just like a war scenario, etc. So here's a couple different examples of the field. Okay, so think about like Christmas time or a holiday. What it feels like during that month or the days leading up to Christmas, and you can feel this collective energy of happiness, joy.
And some people feel stress.
Absolutely, stress. That's
money.
part of the consumer, society
time
that we live in. You know, and so there are these collective ideas that we pick up on. Same thing with like Friday night. Like Friday, everybody feels a Friday. Why? Because it's a collective consciousness. We are the field. So people on Friday, why do we love Fridays? It's the weekend, right?
Yeah.
Well, every day could be Friday if we had a collective consciousness feeling about this experience.
If we individually had the consciousness.
Correct.
So Friday is a unconscious field.
Well, Friday is nothing. It's what we are putting.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's unconscious. So all of a sudden you feel better on Friday. And if you consciously say, why didn't I feel better on Tuesday or Thursday? It's like, well, because of Friday. It's a program.
That's
and
it.
All programs is in the subconscious.
Yep.
When we become conscious, you wouldn't worry if it was Friday or Monday. It would be the same.
But this field, this field, this collective conscious, these ideas, they govern what turns into matter. Here's another one. Homosexuality. Up until about, 20 years ago, homosexuals were looked at as a different type of person. 30, 40, 50 years ago, they thought it was a disease. They tried to cure people. The church, to this day, still talks about homosexuality in a way that is not something that should be recognized.
Yeah,
that is completely false, and you can see it in the collective consciousness around us. Now, today, you tell somebody that you're gay, or you got a gay uncle or a gay cousin or whatever, it's extremely normal and accepted. But 20, 30 years ago, our parents, and the parents before that, it was an entirely different feeling or sense, and that's because the field has changed, and so now these perceptions change.
And that's the thing is, so an individual, so there might be people out there homosexual in the gay community that don't feel, and so they then can govern their own field. So they're not always accepted. And the thing is this, when you don't feel accepted, you find yourself in the field of non-acceptance. Again, it's not to blame the victim. We're not here to do that. We're here to get people out of it. When you're conscious, there is no victimization. When you're unconscious, there is. And that's why when people are unconscious, it takes the benevolence to actually help them out. So it's not about saying, oh, the reason you're having these problems is you're unconscious. No, I would be unconscious for saying that statement. So as we look around, and if I'm in a conscious state and I see someone unconscious, I want to take care of them. It's kind of almost how we talked about, you don't tell someone living on the street their intellect is creating their lack of life. You go up to them and put your arm around them and tell you love them, or whatever comfort level you're at. But you don't try to intellectualize with them. You save that for somebody that's on the fence. It's just different dimensions. So in our society, we like to say this or that, and it's not. It's this and that. There's so many variables. So we got to be conscious of this. So there are people that are feeling still to this day that they're disassociated, disenfranchised, and they are. But when we actually show how to move up to other levels, to where when you step up here, because we all want to feel that I don't care what anyone thinks about me, I'm going to live my life. There's T-shirts, bumper stickers, coffee mugs that say this, but how many people are actually living that? All right. So what we're trying to do is trying to shut people up from stop saying that, and I'm like, we can do that, and we're starting to do that, but at the same time, going to a higher level, and we're all there. No one would even think of that. Are we there yet as a society? No. Individually, I get there most days. Sometimes I fall into the prey of the stupidity and the ignorance. But when I'm up here, I don't see anyone different. Yes, I recognize people's character traits. I'm not blind, but I don't judge them from that standpoint. I want to get to know them. I want to go to their place and see. And it's not even for me. I'm like, I can help that person. That's ignorant.
As soon as we measure something or judge something, we limit ourselves.
Yes.
We define ourselves. If I sit here and I judge Frank, I'm defining my character.
Yeah.
I am not defining Frank's character.
Yeah. So I try to say that. So when I see somebody, I don't know if it's like, oh, that person has a problem. I'm like, I don't know if they have a problem, but I can then go in. And it's not even me helping them, because who am I to help? I'm just encouraging to have the ability to perceive what it is you want to perceive, and then own it and live by it. That's the practice I'm working on, and I'm continuously working on it. It's not there every day. Just ask Karen.
But that's the thing, This is all that growing experience.
It is. We're all in this together, right? We're all in the same boat, as we say, and we're actually understanding in the physics with the quantum field. So in Newtonian physics, we're just banging matter around. We're seeing, okay, if I throw this falls over. I'm like, oh, I have control over some matter thing. And this is this is how we try to control matter. So Newtonian physics taught us how to control matter. But we didn't come here to control matter. We came here to work within the field of matter.
Newtonian physics is a speck. It's all true. We're not saying Newtonian physics isn't true. You drop this cup, it's going to hit the table, whatever.
But why are you dropping the cup is the question.
This is the thing. This is this tiny little bit of this quantum physics whole. Is this Newtonian physics?
Well, without the field of energy, which is where quantum physics come from, quantum mechanics come, there wouldn't be a cup to drop. but you can't see it. So at the subatomic particles, there's something going on. And what's going on? Well, we're realizing how we feel, how we're pulling in my thoughts and stuff, have response, actually have minion over those things. And as we get better at this, like the understanding of what we call the avatar, we can become. But I'm nowhere near an avatar. The only control I feel I have right now is if something's happening, I can choose a more constructive response to it rather than deconstructive response. There will be moments I'm, moving towards, but at the same time, I'm in the present moment. I accept exactly where I am as being perfect because I don't know, I know there's higher levels, but now just knowing that I have the ability to perceive differently, even though something else similar has happened in the past, and I can choose to do something that's more, like I said, constructive, preferential. That's all I need at this moment. That's it.
See, I love that too, because Frank's so right. Anything can happen in this field, right? And outside of us, it is what it is. The only thing you can control truly is within. Yeah. And you have that ability 100% of the time. So yes, you may not be able to control what's going on outside of you at times. But as you become better in working with yourself, you'll see the outside world start to work with you and your feelings more and your collective consciousness more. But every time you have the ability to look at how you're going to experience that. And so if you're looking at something from a unfortunate or a negative perspective, that is solely on you. Yeah. And this needs to click. And when this clicks, life will change for you. But everything is your responsibility. And why this is so special is if everything is your responsibility and you have the choice to look at this, this also means you are the solution. You are the solution to everything. Yeah. And so if I'm the problem to everything, then I am the solution to everything. Yeah. You now have all answers.
That's it.
And that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, that's it. And so I highly recommend this book called The Biology of Belief. And actually, Bruce Lipton goes into the science and what's happening to the cells and everything else. And when you actually know what's happening and you remain conscious, you wouldn't do anything differently. So again, check out his book. It's a brilliant book. It's very, even if you're not a biologist or science major or into science, this is a very layman's way of explaining it. It simplifies it, brings it down to how we can apply this to a life and change our life and change the world we live in. Literally change the world we live in. Yeah.
Yeah, guys. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Like Frank was just saying, Dr. Bruce Lipton breaks us down into a very digestible way.
Very.
And it's something that we can relate to, we can see, and just the examples that he uses, like Frank mentioned, throughout history, it allows your mind to connect and the dots, essentially, and go, it's like a big aha moment, like, wow, all this makes so much sense.
They've been talking about this for millennia.
Yeah. So, guys, trust your gut more. Stop relying on, confirmation out here.
Or change your gut.
Well, yeah, stop looking for people outside of you to validate you. If it feels right, move into that.
Well, also,
move into it.
Like, move your energy from your gut to your heart.
Yeah, that's the big thing. That's meditation.
Your gut is actually, because people say, listen to your gut. Your gut is giving you information based on your program.
Oh, totally.
But if you want to go beyond your program, you got to go into the heart. And that's the heart. Electromagnetic field is 5,000 times greater than the brain. It's huge. 5,000 times
crazy
greater.
When you say that.
Yeah. So move your energy into your heart, and then that's what you want to listen to. Work on that, because the gut is something that's only programmed. So if someone's coming at me with a gun, my gut says shoot them.
But that's the program for sure.
Yeah, that's the program. Yeah.
Real quick, how do we do that? Through meditation. How do we move that energy from our lower energy centers up to the heart?
All right, so there's multitudes of different modalities, but it's basic, simple one that's been around for millennia is simply when you quiet your mind, put your attention where the heart is, wherever your attention goes, there goes the energy. That's a physics solution. All right? There are ways of doing it. There's ones where I actually bear down and I breathe in, and when I bear down, I actually slowly breathe up, and I move the spinal fluid up my spinal column into it. That helps out. But if you just sit quietly and gently, and take a couple of deep breaths, relax, find your center, and then you actually just bring your attention to your heart. If you do it long enough, the energy will come there. It will move up into that field.
It has to.
Wherever you give attention to, there goes the energy.
That's it.
Yeah. That's why, again, what field? Are you giving the field of peace or the field of fear? Wherever your attention goes, there goes your energy.
There is only love and fear.
Yeah. The thing is, I have minion over my energy. I'm staying in this field of peace. Yeah.
And you have and you decide that.
Yeah, decide it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys for joining us this week. We covered Dr. Bruce Lipton. Check him out. We'll be back next week with a whole new
segment,
teacher, a whole new segment. Yeah. We're excited for it. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and send us a message or email to perspectiveshift2020@gmail.com or comment below. But we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, peace out and peace in as well.
I like that.
There you go.
Thanks,
All right,
guys.
bye.
We'll see you next week.
All right.